Hello,
Good
my
morning.
name is Rita B. Otey, and I am the daughter of Reverend John Douglas Beamer Sr. My father was a resident of Bedford, Virginia. He was a pastor, a teacher, and at one time was the first principal of Counter Ridge Elementary School in Big Island, Virginia. Okay, my father was an upstanding citizen of Bedford City. At one time, he was the moderator of the Peaks of Honor Baptist Association, and he also founded New Life Baptist Church. I'm pulling some events from the memories of a toddler. Some from what my mom told me about what went on when we first moved to Big Island, Virginia in 1958. And then some from asking a few questions to people who remembered those times. For those who don't know me, I'm not a native Big Islandite. That's a new word. As a matter of fact, I've only lived in Big Island for probably no more than 3 years of my life. I can't really tell you an exact number because I was a toddler when we moved there. But I do have a connection to Big Island beginning in 1958 to the present time. Education was important to the black community. Because of segregation, the guarantee of a formal education was not a reality for all people. A lot of people had little or no formal education during the 1950s and 1940s, earlier in the 20th century. Schools were one, two-room schools built within communities went to maybe the seventh grade. Limited and insufficient educational supplies were a reality, but grateful for what you had. There were people who were willing to share their knowledge and knew that education was the key to advancement. We needed safe schools, electricity, and running water. My dad grew up in an area that the community only had schools that went to seventh grade. If you wanted to further your education, you had to leave home. So he ended up going to Christiansburg High School. And while at Christiansburg, he worked on the campus, and this is how he was able to pay his tuition there. He later went on to Bluefield College in West Virginia. He graduated from college, I'm thinking somewhere around the age of 20, 21. And when he graduated, he then became principal of a school in Galax, which is where we're from, called Roosevelt Phelps School. When he was at Roosevelt Phelps, I am pretty sure that they were recruiting or trying to recruit black principals to come in the Bedford County area. And someone recruited him to come to Big Island. This was in 1958. When Daddy came to Big Island, we came to Sharon School in Big Island. We actually lived in my in-laws' house because I ended up marrying an Otey. So we actually ended up living in my in-laws' house, and Daddy just walked across the street to Sharon School. Somewhere around 1958-59, they were building Counter Ridge Elementary School. And he was to be the first principal of Counter Ridge Elementary School. After the school was built, we moved into the old two-room school. From what I can remember, because I was maybe 2 years old, I can remember high ceilings. I can remember big windows, and I think I can remember two rooms because I'm pretty sure that Counter Ridge was a two-room school. I know it was cold in the wintertime, and I can remember the stove with the cold and being heated there. And that's really all I can remember about where we lived, because we lived on the campus. From memory, Counter Ridge was a school that you entered from the outside. I can remember it being long, and you entered from the outside. There were lots of doors, and I can remember a few steps. I can kind of remember the boiler room, because in the wintertime, Dad would get up early and he would go over and he would stoke the stove. So he would put coal in the stove for heat for the buildings. And that's really all I can remember about Counter Ridge. I know that there was a sense of community there. They had a baseball team, and from what people said, my daddy was very competitive. I don't remember that, but they said that he was very competitive, and the baseball team at the school, from my understanding, was very good. I've been told that he chewed chewing gum and popped it all the time. I don't remember that, but that's what I've been told. I know that, as I said, that the school, there was a sense of community. I can remember him talking about one of the heads of the PTA, who was was James Reynolds. And I have a connection with that family as well now, since I'm grown. When we moved to Big Island in 1958, I believe construction had already begun in Bedford County on 3 new elementary schools for blacks: Counter Ridge, Otter River, and Body Camp. These schools were being built so that the 1 and 2 room community schools that existed in Bedford at that time would be consolidated. Robert Bonds was principal of Body Camp, Mr. Lee at Otter River, and my dad at Counter Ridge. I'm not exactly sure when my father left as principal of Counter Ridge. I know we lived in Bedford City at the time. He was transferred to Otter River as a classroom teacher. The other 2 principals, Mr. Lee and Mr. Bonds, were also placed in classrooms. This was the time when black principals, those who were overhead the 1 and 2 schools, community schools in Bedford County, were not allowed to be principals at a white school. I'm pretty sure that someone from Big Island Elementary School was designated as principal at Counter Ridge. And this was because children had the choice at that time of either going to Counter Ridge or going to Big Island Elementary School. So when Daddy left at Counter Ridge, it was still open, and I'm not exactly sure who was put in as principal, but I do know that it was not a black person. In 1965-1966 school year, Counter Ridge operated under the Freedom of Choice. This was when the students had a choice to attend either the Big Island Elementary, which was a white school, or stay at Counter Ridge. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act gave them that opportunity. In 1970, Bedford County fully integrated. So students left Counter Ridge in 1970 and then went to Big Island Elementary School. I'm not exactly sure what happened to Counter Ridge after the students were taken out of there. Daddy ended up his career teaching Jefferson Forest High School.
As we live in this time of confusion and discord in the world, what message do you think your dad would have to give us today?
Education is the key of having a good life. No matter what struggles we go through, you have to learn to adapt and endure it. because we want what is best for us as well as what is best for our families.
Say that.
I think that is what my dad would say to us today.